So check this out. I've got something that you've probably never seen before. Jay Scott's freaking shoes that he wore today at Best Ever Conference. I've never seen him wear.
Let me guess. Kirkland brand?
Yeah. Yep, Costco. Yep, Costco brand.
Look at the bottom of those. Those have like never been worn before. Those are brand new. He's probably owned them for years.
Dude, the guy shows up today. Basically, he looks exactly like me. He's got a nice little blazer on. He's got a black t-shirt, and he's wearing those shoes. I've never seen Jay wear closed-toe shoes. It's amazing. He looks good. He also looks about 3 inches taller, by the way.
Welcome to Drunk Real Estate.
Grab a drink and enjoy the show.
Hey there, and welcome to our second attempt at episode 42 of Drunk Real Estate. I am Kyle Wilson, Ashley Wilson's husband, and we have live on location from the Best Ever Conference, a couple of drunkards trying to pull off a podcast. How's it going, Mauricio?
But why do you go to me first? You usually go to Jay first, and Jay's drunker than I am, and somehow you went to me.
Because you're a funnier drunk.
I am. I'm a really fun drunk. Jay really insisted. We keynoted today, day one, and it was a great event. And we got off stage, and Jay said, let's go straight to the bar. Let's drink some Camus, and that's what we're drinking. We're drinking a little Camus action.
We've actually finished the Camus bottle.
Yep, and then we're going on to number 2, which is the Bell Gloss, which is really nice. And we're having a good time.
So 2 bottles and 2 podcasts for everyone else who's listening right now. We did about an hour, and then we realized these 2 just had awful internet and lost everything. So they moved up to their room, and hopefully we get a second attempt at this. So it's Jay. Is it? Are we good now?
Yeah, we're an hour drunker, so it'll make for an even better episode.
By the way, hey, Kyle, before you go on, remind me that before this episode is over, I've got to announce the winner of the free Legal Strategies for Everyone book that I promised last week. There's 35 people that have signed up above and beyond the ones that are guaranteed. So I got to do a drawing today. So don't let me forget that.
We'll that'll be our top 10.
Well, let's do a live spin the wheel or something.
Can we do that as a top in lieu of the top 10? It's way more exciting than the top 10.
That's fair. We're already going to do a truncated episode because it's getting past your guys' bedtime here. So, AJ, you still with us? I was afraid you would leave, that you'd be out of here.
I'm surprised I'm still with us. Yes. I'm here. Got my Diet Coke. Everyone's favorite designated drivers still rocking the Diet Coke in the red cup.
All right. Well, text one of your assistants right now because you're going to need a refill. So they have them bring in another refill.
I am.
AJ, are you aware that you are currently hosting a happy hour here at the Best Ever Conference and you are not here?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the event I'm putting on. It's going to be great. I think I've got Jay to go down in my stead and just say that he shaved. So it's me just shaved. I think it'll work.
So literally your assistant said, yeah, we're doing a happy hour tonight in AJ's name, but he doesn't know about it.
I had no clue.
You've made it, by the way, you've made it when you step off your private jet and you have no idea what's going on. And your assistant Casey's not even next to you and she's at the Best Ever Conference. And you have no idea what's going on, but she's hosting a happy hour on your behalf.
She's way better than me. Like, you guys met Casey. She's awesome. So way more people will show up and have fun anyway.
And AJ, I really have to commend you on your ability to laugh at the same joke twice because we did that joke earlier and you still look like you enjoyed it just
better
as much
the
this
drunker
time.
he gets because it doesn't come out good. So it's even funnier.
Kyle, what are you drinking?
Well, I might have to get a second one because I'm almost done, but I went with the clear. I got a new shipment of clear coming in. They ship right to your house. And so it showed up on my doorstep this morning. So I figured I would crack one open for the boys.
Is that the clear rum with no sugar, no carbs?
No sugar, no carbs, buddy. You know it. Got to stay svelte. All right. Well, we are going to try and keep this pretty short so that AJ can get home or host a happy hour, whatever he has to get out of here to do. But either way, I think we're gonna cut this down to maybe two two segments and a drawing at the end. So let's start with our economic update. We can't skip that though, otherwise Mauricio will get upset that Jay doesn't get to go first. So we had a jobs report on Friday once again that came in higher than expected, as per usual, posting more than 300,000 jobs gained in the month. We also had quite a few Fed member speeches last week, and they all echoed the higher for longer sentiment. So that led to the 10-year treasury bumping up to a 5-month high. So Jay, we have CPI set to release actually this morning when this podcast drops. So what is the state of the economy at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, nothing has changed since last month or the month before or the month before or the month before that. I mean, the numbers are still looking strong. Unemployment, came in really strong last week for the month of March. We had 303,000 jobs created. They were expecting somewhere around 220, so that's a huge number. And most of those were in the healthcare, government, and construction industries. But let's temper that a little bit, because if you dig into the data, and I know you saw this as well as I did, if you dig into the data, most of those jobs, I mean, over 690,000 jobs were actually part-time jobs that were created last month. And so I know I said 300,000 were created and then 691. There's actually two different surveys. So there's the establishment survey, which is asking companies how many jobs they've added to their payroll registers. And then there's the household survey, which is asking everyday Americans like you and me, what's going on in their job life. And so the household survey basically had about 700,000 people who said they added part-time jobs to their repertoire. 6,000 people said they lost jobs, or not that they lost jobs, that they lost their full-time job. So we added a lot of jobs last month, but if you reconcile the two surveys, basically what you find is that most of those jobs were part-time. And so we don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's quite possible that people are saying, hey, I like having 2 4-hour a day jobs as opposed to 1 8-hour a day job. But common sense tells us that adding lots of part-time jobs is probably not as healthy for the economy as adding full-time jobs. So I'd be a little concerned there. Wages went up last month, which was good, went up about 0.3%, which on an annualized basis is somewhere between 3.5% and 4%. If CPI, if inflation is somewhere between 3% and 4%, that means we have real wage growth, which people are actually making more money, inflation adjusted. So I guess that's good. And then we saw some adjustments, as we always do in previous months' payroll numbers. And this case, unlike much of the rest of last year, in this case, we saw revisions upwards. So in January, we saw 27,000 more jobs than what was originally announced. And in February, we were down 5,000. But for January and February, basically 22,000 jobs more than what was originally announced.
They got to mix in one revision up every once in a while just so we stop being so suspicious of every single time them revising them down.
I hate to be cynical and skeptical and conspiracy theorist, because that's not me. But given all these revisions down over the last year, I'm not going to say that you're wrong. Then more importantly, as you mentioned, this morning when this podcast drops, 8:30 this morning, we're going to see CPI numbers, inflation numbers for March. If they come in as expected, we're going to be somewhere between 3.5% and 4% for an annualized number, which puts us a little bit less than last month. It's going to mean inflation is going to go up for the year a tiny bit. Core inflation is going to go down for the year a tiny bit. But again, we're coming in right about where we've been for the last 5 or 6 months. Long story short, we just haven't seen a whole lot change over the last few months. One thing I will say is that last week we saw a small business optimism index that we get a reading on every month. It was the lowest we've seen since 2012. Small businesses right now are a little bit pessimistic, and that's probably mostly a result of the fact that borrowing costs are likely to stay high for longer. We're seeing bond yields go up. We're likely to see loan costs go up simply because treasury yields are going up. So right now, small businesses aren't particularly happy with the economy, or at least less happy than they've been in the past decade.
Yeah, and Kyle, this really reminds me of my favorite Mark Twain quote, which is, there's three types of lies in this world. There's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. And the statistics show that there's a lot of jobs going on, but the reality is, if people are losing their jobs, and in exchange for that loss, they have to go get 2 jobs or 3 jobs, is that really economic growth? Is that really something that we should be championing? I mean, at the end of the day, yes.
Well, to your point right now, the number of people with multiple jobs has never been higher in history. And do you know when that actually peaks, that number, people with multiple jobs? It's always right before a recession. So who knows how high that peak's going to be, but that's just a data point to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's why I just don't like looking at these numbers too much. I mean, again, we always get revised numbers, and yes, we got a couple of upticks here, but I think that the fact that there are part-time jobs are the ones that are really driving these numbers just doesn't have a good. Now, look, there are some people that maybe want to have part-time jobs. They just prefer to have 2 or 3 hour a day jobs or whatever. But my gut tells me that these are people who can't find jobs. They need a job to support their families, but instead of having 1 job, they're ending up having 2 or sometimes 3 jobs.
It could be a bit of a new normal too. Like with COVID, we had to see a lot of people get creative, take on gig work. We saw a lot of people had to stay home with the kids, so they were taking on different part-time jobs, and maybe they just got a little bit used to it. Like I know that somebody who has the ability to stay home with their kids and do a night gig work or drive an Uber or do all these different things, maybe they actually enjoy spending more time with their kids and having that part-time job. So it might be a bit of a new normal as well.
I think that quality over quantity is really, really important. And one of the problems with part-time jobs is, historically speaking, obviously, part-time jobs don't lead to careers. So part-time jobs are normally transitory. They don't lead to careers, and they don't generally have a build-up or a compounding. So part-time jobs switch at a rate that is obviously way, way higher than full employment. So there is a massive component to quality, right? And the job market is no different. It's having a lot of people work at McDonald's as opposed to something else. There's a difference in the output that the overall economy receives from that labor force and what they're putting into it. And the rate at which part-time jobs have increased in 2023 is fairly staggering. I mean, in June of 2023, we were at 25 million. We're at 30 million part-time jobs today. That's how much it's increased in the last year. So even when you go back to more like COVID, it's still much lower. So in the last 12 months, we have seen a dramatic change in the type of jobs in the labor pool.
And that's got to be like, the gig economy, right? That's a big one, right? So somebody had a job, they get another job that doesn't pay as well, or like you said, the quality of jobs matters, right? So you had a really good job. Maybe you're an engineer, Jay. You're an engineer, you have a good income, and then you get laid off and you can't find a new job, and you end up getting another job that just doesn't cut it for you. It doesn't pay you enough to, meet your standard of living. Then you go out and drive an Uber or do another gig economy thing to supplement that income.
Yeah, I think it's inflation. So cost of everything has gotten so high, a job doesn't support you anymore. So people are getting second jobs. Why? Because their grocery bills tied to the gas and home prices and every single component of life in that. So if you look, when did those part-time jobs start to go up? At literally the peak of inflation. That's when they started to rise. And also in June of 2023, you also see a drop in what? Savings. So credit card debt is rising, part-time jobs is rising, and that all and cash on hand or our savings has been dramatically dropping and dwindling since that same point. So there is a correlation between those things, right? Inflation peaks, all of a sudden savings dwindles, people take more jobs, we get more part-time jobs, credit cards start to go up. The question is, how long is that sustainable?
I have one more theory that I heard as well when I was listening to the Rate Guy podcast this week, and it talks about immigration. So the thing is that in 2022, Powell estimated that the monthly break-even non-farm payroll job gains has to be about 100,000 per month, which translates, 1.2 million. Back in 2020, the CBO estimated that the number of immigrants coming in 2023 would be about 1 million, which makes sense, right? We talked about this, how homegrown birth death, we're not really growing as a population. We're only growing through immigration. And so what has happened in 2023? Well, instead of only 1 million immigrants coming in 2023, we had 3 million immigrants come in 2023, to the point where they, these officials that left the CBO meeting, they left thinking that now our neutral job growth level is more like 265,000 per month. So think about that. If our neutral level is actually at 265,000 due to immigration, these numbers that we're seeing, 300,000, 180,000, like we're just breaking even for the number of people that are coming in order to keep our job growth just steady. So I thought that was an interesting, I don't want to get political with immigration, whether immigration's good or immigration's bad, but like it's just
10 million according to the Immigration Services government's webpage. 2023 was 10 million immigrants.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, if those immigrants that are getting jobs are paying taxes,
they're not.
Well, I think that's
Undocumented immigrants.
So undocumented immigrants can still pay taxes.
But the one good thing though is they've actually shown that these immigrants getting jobs aren't stealing jobs at this point. They're not taking jobs from homegrown Americans yet. So that's one silver lining.
They're doing jobs that we didn't have anybody to do. Like our labor force contraction was horrible. Like it was bad. You couldn't get people to work to do anything. It's not, I'm not saying that we don't need the people. I didn't say anything like that. I just said it's 10 million people, right? So that number is astronomical, and they don't pay full tax basis. So that, they don't, but they aren't, I don't think they're taking jobs at all, but that changes. You're right. If 10 million people came in and that's participating in the labor pool and it's part-time jobs, that actually is a big number.
And you probably pay zero taxes, federal taxes as well anyway. So
federal taxes. Yeah. I haven't paid federal taxes in a long time.
Yeah, but this brings up Jay and I talked about this, or maybe I talked about it more than you did on our keynote today. But like, this is a thesis that I've been, talking about quite a bit lately. And I'm going to keep going with it because nobody's given me a good argument against it. But, back in the day, right? Like 1950s, 1960s, everyone could survive on a one income base. They had one person working, other spouse stayed at home, all good. Then as things got more expensive, then you had to include the second spouse in the market, in the labor force, because things were getting more expensive. You couldn't have one person doing $60,000 a year. It did not afford you the ability to go get a house, a mortgage, a car, kids, or whatever. So the second spouse had to come into the labor force in order to make that difference. Well, now not too many people that I know have a third spouse. So what tends to happen is
we are in Salt Lake City. So,
and I would like to know who those people who you do know.
but my point is, at some point, AJ, you touched upon it. Like as inflation goes up, as things become more expensive, you need more capital. You don't have a third spouse to enter the workforce. So what does that mean? You've got to get either a better paying job to keep up with stuff, or you have to get another job. And then I think that's part of the story here, where people are getting a second job, not because they want to, it's just that they don't have a third spouse. I actually asked the audience today, like, how many of you guys are married? And then how many of you guys have a third spouse? Like not many in Utah.
Yeah, it was like 6 or 7.
6 or 7 have a third spouse.
Was there 6 people who put their hand up?
No,
I don't think there's anybody put their house. But I think it makes the point that, you don't have you need the relief pitcher to come in and help, and there are no more relief pitchers. So what happens? And we were talking about real estate, so that, there are other permutations of that argument. But in this particular context, the only way to get more income at this point is to get either get a higher paying job, or if you can't get a higher paying job, get a second or third job to be able to afford the house, the mortgage, the cars, the kids, and everything that before you could do on 60 grand a year. Today, now you need double that. And even that's not even cutting it.
You know whose fault it is? The little iPads. The little iPads, when you check out, now I'm expected to, when I get a coffee, I'm expected, the minimum that I have to tip is 18% now. That's the problem. Everything's getting more tipping expensive. That's why we have to have a third job.
Even on eggs, Kyle. Even when I buy eggs.
Actually, I don't think it's made it to the grocery stores yet.
Thanks, Obama.
Seriously. Freaking tipping. That's Obama's fault.
All right, Jay, you got anything else to round out this segment?
Yeah, so really quick, and I think this is really important, and actually I think this is probably more interesting than all the jobs numbers and other data that I mentioned, because again, all of that stuff is basically saying we're in the status quo. And you mentioned this in the intro, bond yields are going up. And that's a result of investors and average Americans and other countries looking at what's going on here and saying, hey, it's very likely that the Fed overestimated the number of rate cuts we're going to have this year. We may not have any. We may have one. We may have two, unlikely.
Or Fed members themselves are coming out now and saying, "Oh, well, maybe it's only going to be one cut later on." And
by the way, when we say bond yields, are we talking about short end bonds or long end bonds? Are we talking about 10 year, 2 years? Let's get some clarity here.
So
we're real estate investors, Mauricio. We're always talking about the 10-year.
Okay, good. Yep. Okay, let's talk about 10-year.
Yeah.
So what's going on with 10-year?
Yeah, and as Mauricio pointed out and corrected me earlier, that the short-term bonds tend to be a lot more stable. But 10 years is creeping up, and I think it's because a lot of people are concerned about there not being any rate cuts this year or a fewer number of rate cuts. People are concerned about inflation being more sticky. And increase in bond yields is not going to be good for a lot of people. It's not going to be good for businesses who need to refinance and borrow. It's not going to be good for consumers who need to borrow money. It's not going to be good for homeowners or real estate investors who need to refinance or borrow money. Everything's going to get more expensive. And so if we continue to see bond yields go up, and just to give some perspective, we hit 5% like last September-ish, October-ish. By January, we were down below 4%. So that was a great, great move downward. But the 10 years now around 4.4%. So we're heading back up. And so this is not going to be good for a lot of us if this doesn't reverse trend. And if worst case, if it continues to go up, we could see some major repercussions.
Yeah, but remember, that's not normal. Is that we're still in a inverted curve situation. We've been in an inverted curve situation for a long, long time. But like the 2-year bonds are trading much, much higher than the 10-year. And so normally the 10-year would be trading much, much higher than the 2-year, but that's not what's been happening. And that's typically, by the way, just FYI, prior to a recession, what you typically see is a curve inversion and then the curve uninverting, which actually would be what's going on if your long-term was getting higher, because it needs to catch up. The long-term should be in a normal, healthy environment higher than the 2-year. And right now, for the last, what has it been, 18 months? 18 months, the 10-year yield has been lower than the 2-year, and that's just not sustainable. It's going to reverse at some point, and that's usually when the damage happens.
Yeah, actually longer. I think it was July of 22.
Almost 2 years now.
Yeah, but we still have quite a bunch of economic data and quite a bunch of things happening before June, which was everyone was predicting that's when the first rate cut would happen. And if you look at the probabilities, we're still at about 60% chance of that happening. That hasn't moved much over the last month. We've been at 60% for about a month. So I think most people are still thinking it's going to happen. It's just that doubt is creeping in, and that's why you're seeing spikes in certain things. Because you actually, we saw that jobs number come out, and we saw a bunch of Fed speeches this week, and it didn't really affect the stock market like it has historically. Normally these jobs numbers all of a sudden sends the stock market into a spiral. I don't know if it's people are just numb to these job numbers, but the only thing it really affected was the 10-year treasury. So hopefully we could see some good economic data going forward, and we'll see those 3 rate cuts, because as real estate investors, we sure need it.
Yeah, and I'll leave it at this. I was on a panel today at Best Ever, and the question was around, are we going to see a recession this year? And one of the other guys on the panel started rattling off a whole bunch of economic statistics, basically leading to or reinforcing the fact that we are kind of heading towards a recession. And I said, well, I just want to add one more piece of data that would refute all of that. And that's simply that the Fed has the ability to print unlimited money. And I think the fact that the Fed can and has indicated that they're willing to print ridiculous amounts of money kind of refutes any other piece of economic data or statistic that you might have, because I'm firmly convinced that if the Fed wants to spend their way out of any recession in the near term, they can do that. Obviously, it's not going to last forever. At some point, we're gonna have to deal with that. There's going to be a reckoning, but until then, over the short period of time, I think the Fed can outspend any recessionary period.
Well, they're actually in the best position that they've been in, I don't know, 15 years, because their interest rates were, 8% for people to buy a home. What happens when interest rates go to 4? Like, we're in the economic activity that we see now at these interest rates. Cut them in half and see what will happen. So they have a lot of ability to get the economy moving right now.
All right. Fair enough. Well, hopefully something happens. So let's move on. Should we move on to the commercial loans, or should we do the capital calls? What's
Let's
your
do AJ.
bet?
Let's do AJ, but I also want to talk about the fact that we went from a Camus to a Bell Gloss, and it was a very, very big drop in quality of wines, and I'm very, very disappointed. But so if you guys are following the wine, Camus is way better.
There was too much wax on that stem. That must have reduced the quality. I think they took a whole candle making that thing.
I do have some dark chocolate to offset the
Nice.
Oh, don't start snacking. You guys, you're already sharing a microphone. If the both of you are snacking, that's all that people are going to hear this entire podcast.
Oh man, is this like a 70% cacao? What is this?
This is a 70%. Look at
Oh,
this. A bourbon
Oh, yeah.
aged, bourbon barrel aged, 75% cacao.
oh yeah,
Like this was probably the most expensive piece of chocolate I've ever
this is
purchased.
delish.
And
Good job.
They've gotten to the drunk stage now where they're snacking and they're hungry. So we're watching. We're going to watch it all unfold live on this podcast.
You guys are just jealous. You guys are just jealous. AJ, I know you're jealous because you got off your private jet and you weren't here. You thought you were here in beautiful Utah, and you got off your plane and you were in Idaho, and you were like, "What the hell am I doing here when I should be with my buddies J and Mauricio?" But yeah, you could be here with us, bud.
They're not upset at all.
He's there in spirit and in photograph. Apparently, doesn't he have some cutouts there? All right, let's move to AJ and let's wrap this up quickly. So many financial analysts have been predicting the downfall of commercial real estate for 18 months now. They've been saying the combination of high rates, oversupply, and weakening demand is going to lead to this flood of foreclosures, but these foreclosures haven't surfaced yet. While many continue to double down on their predictions, with overall delinquency rates still at near historical averages, and some people have been left stumped as to what's going on. So AJ, geez, I'm slurring my words too. You're rubbing off on me. AJ, are these foreclosures taking longer to work their way through the system, or is these predictions just missing something completely?
So I think, first of all, like a lot of this stuff, I do think it's overblown. And I think there's this idea that because of the debt that's coming due, that it'll just implode, right? Why? Because rates would rise so high. Now, one of the problems, though, that you have is, first of all, they say these huge numbers. Like, did you know this much debt is coming due this year? When that's actually normal. That much debt comes due a lot, right? Because commercial loans are not 30-year mortgages. So every year, vast batches of commercial loans are needing to be refinanced or repositioned. Why? Because their term is up. So when you look at the commercial loan market overall, the numbers are staggering, and it makes for great sensationalizing, where and a lot of people think that for some reason it's all coming due today, it's not normal, and it's just going to erupt. Now, that's obviously not true. Now, it doesn't mean that commercial real estate is not in a bad spot, because obviously interest rates where they are at, that is really, really bad. And depending on the performance of the asset, right, you can be in a lot of trouble. But I think there's another problem, that commercial real estate, when people say that, what does that even mean? So when you say commercial real estate, I think people just think offices. But that's not commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is a ginormous sector that has lots of different assets and lots of different asset classes. Now, when you look at the one that's hurting the most, right, that is office space. But that is a fraction. So the loans that are in trouble within office is actually a fraction of the commercial real estate market. You're talking about less than 5%. So that overall debt load, when you're talking about the whole entire sector, right? Now you go in and the other commercial real estate asset classes, they can struggle, but it doesn't mean that they're going to implode. So the correlation, because interest rates are higher, we see trouble in the office space, means that the entire commercial real estate industry is going to blow up or implode, is not only a stretch, it's a wild stretch, because that's not exactly true. The other thing is the basis. And this is where I think a lot of people don't quite understand. Interest rates are rising, but what was the basis that they entered in? Now, over the last 5 years, the values that have been created in commercial real estate are staggering. Why? Because revenues rose so much. So if you go back 5 years ago, and the value in a lot of these asset classes, they have risen so dramatically compared to the basis that they entered in, that their loan to value now is not the same. Our portfolio loan to value, is under 50% that we have. And that was because of we didn't go into it that way, right? That's because of the increase in revenues that we have received. Our net income rises, it's worth more. So the debt coverage ratio, our DCRs on our portfolio has actually dropped dramatically. So even though you have interest rates rise, it doesn't even get close to the getting us into trouble or anything else like that. Why? Because our overall debt load in comparison to revenue from where we started has gone down extraordinarily. So that's another thing. A lot of these asset classes 10 years ago, right, when they locked in, their debt load is under 50%. Now, that does not mean there's not problems. Anytime you have such a dramatic rise in interest rate, you're going to have people that get into trouble. But we're coming off the great financial crisis. So banks were operating too under a different standard. They were operating under a different standard in how they set debt terms, how much debt they would even put on, what the debt coverage ratios looked like. So this isn't like a 2008 scenario. Now, will there be issues? Will people get into trouble and foreclose? First of all, yes, that happens. That's part of cycles, right? People that did bad deals, people that had floating rates at the top of the market and then rents went down, they may be underwater. But a lot of that too, what you're doing is you're wiping out the equity that was put in. It doesn't mean you're getting into trouble. So the equity then is wiped out and the investors lose their money, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the bank or that loan will even implode. Now, I think a lot of people have been surprised. There just doesn't seem to be fire sales and distress coming out. I know that I wish that there was. We're not finding fire sales. We're not finding desperate people that are all of a sudden just dropping deals on the market. And one of the major reasons you don't see that is because there's so much cash on the sidelines and people want real estate. So if a price is going down, it's actually not taking it a lot for that to go down to be snatched up by investors. So in order to have a distressed market, you can't dispose of the asset. If you're in trouble with your debt and you need to do something and you can sell that asset at the value that you bought it at or higher, the loan you don't have any problems, right? So there's still money that is going into the space.
That's still a very low percentage of the actual total market out there, right? Like we're just talking about these properties that were bought like peak 2021, 2022 that are the ones that are having the real troubles. And like, that's such a, like, I have a chart, like, what do you think the actual overall delinquency rate is right now? Like if you would listen to the, like all of these different articles, you'd think that, oh, we are 10+% delinquency rate. But if you actually look at what our delinquency rate is right now, like, especially like we're in the multifamily space, our delinquency rate for loans is less than 2%. So like, if you're looking for a wave of foreclosures, a less than 2% delinquency rate, that's not even foreclosure rate. Like you're not going to be getting that anytime soon.
let me just jump in here because I don't disagree with anything AJ just said, and I'm on board with everything. But at the end of the day, our entire economic system is based on confidence. And if people start to lose confidence in the system, that's when things start falling apart. So we saw that with Silicon Valley Bank. Like it's just one bank that there was rumors that maybe they're this and maybe that, and suddenly there was a bank run, and then that's like everybody started freaking out, and suddenly the Fed had to come in and bail people, put in some confidence in there. So I understand the issue, and I understand that maybe from a an analytical and a mathematical, and it's not a big deal and whatever, but from a confidence standpoint, when people, it just takes a small thing to happen where people just completely lose confidence. They don't understand all this stuff. Nobody's keeping track like AJ and Kyle and Jay, understanding all the intricacies. They just know that freaking this bank is about to lose their money, and they're like, crap, maybe my bank will also not be able to pay me. So let me go to my bank and get my money out. And it suddenly becomes a snowball effect. So it's all well and good, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to confidence. And if people start losing confidence in the system, that's when everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
And I think a lot of that's fueled by, as AJ pointed out, the office space, right? Like looking back at the chart that I threw up there, like most of these other asset classes, if you look at the major asset classes, are relatively stable. Now you're seeing lodging sneak up a little bit as well. But the only one that's up and to the right is the office space. And so when you're looking at the overall delinquency from January 2023, the average across all spaces with 2.94, a year later in January 2024, it's 4.66. Well, what's attributing to that? Just looking at the graph, it's mainly office. So those are the ones, the scary headlines. You also, like, we know that the media likes to latch on to, foreclosures and scary headlines. But if you dive deeper into it, it's, especially with the more stable asset classes, I don't think it's as dire as what's being portrayed.
Yeah, but most people don't dive in deeper to it. They just see the headline and they see commercial real estate, and they don't make the distinction, well, this is really office and it doesn't have anything to do with multifamily and retail and warehouse. And they don't realize that they're, commercial comprises of 10 different asset classes.
But how is that affecting anyone's real decisions? Like anybody who's actually making decisions to buy things?
Because they're reading the headlines. They're reading the headlines. They're freaking out, and they're like, "Crap! This bank is going under. Crap! Maybe my bank is going under, and I need to go down the street and pull all my money out."
But that's not going to lead to more commercial property foreclosures. That's the people who are making these decisions. They're actually in tune. Like they're the ones who are paying the big money for this actual data, and they're not just reading the headlines and the Wall Street Journal and saying, "Oh my gosh, our multifamily's in trouble." They actually see the data and they know what's going on.
Yeah, but it's going to lead to people pulling their money out from these regional commercial banks and putting them into JP Morgan and Wells Fargo and Bank of America. And these smaller banks are going to have a liquidity crisis, and they're not going to be able to survive, and they're going to lose and have to be bought out by JP Morgan.
Look, I hate to say this because I've been, for the last year, since Silicon Valley Bank, I've been the guy that's been saying, I'm not concerned about the banks. I'm not concerned about commercial mortgages. Certainly office could have some problems, but I don't see it trickling into the broader economy. I don't see it trickling across asset classes. So I'm not normally the one to be contrarian here. But since nobody else is, I'm going to be a little bit contrarian here. The one big risk I see potentially is that, unlike with multifamily, other commercial asset classes like office and warehouse and industrial, a lot of times when you go to get a loan, you can't get a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac agency loan. You're going to a smaller regional or local bank to get these loans. And a lot of times what they're going to require you to do in order to get a loan on your office building or on your commercial or in your industrial space or whatever it is, they're going to require you to collateralize other commercial real estate that you have. For example, they're going to require you to collateralize your multifamily property in order to get your office loan. And so for the office loans out there, while the LTVs are relatively low, I think the last I read, the average loan to value for an office loan was like 43%. While it's relatively low, a lot of those loans are cross-collateralized with things like multifamily. So for those deals that do go south, for those loans that do get foreclosed, the potential is not just the office space getting foreclosed upon, but the multifamily at risk of foreclosure as well, because that's been cross-collateralized. And so that's where I see the bigger risk here, the cross-collateralization of other commercial assets along with things like office. And so again, I don't
When
really.
we keep saying foreclose, like I don't see banks being quick to foreclose, and we're not seeing it either. Like we're seeing these loans that are underwater. We're seeing properties that are selling for less than the loan, and the banks are trying to work with people and do short sales. The foreclosure process for commercial real estate is just so much more intricate than for single family, that it's not an easy thing for a bank to just go and foreclose on a property. It's not like, the my single family home, they underwrite me as a person and my ability to pay. I stop paying, they're just going to say, okay, well, let's start the foreclosure process. There's a whole list of things that happen first. Like if you're having trouble like making payments, or your property even just gets in trouble in general and you're still making payments, then the lender can step in. They have the ability to put you in special servicing, and they sweep your cash. So they take care of your cash, and they'll even put in new property management. They'll start taking care of the property before any of this happens. And then even if you do stop paying, they're not just going to jump right to foreclosure. They can just wait it out as well. They could put their special servicing in. They could charge what's called default interest, which if you haven't read your loan docs, go check out what default interest is. That's all of a sudden you stop paying. On the money that you stop paying, they could charge some crazy amount, like 18% sometimes, extra interest. And so what they could do is they can wait this out, wait for values to come up a little bit, and then they can wipe out your equity entirely because they've charged all this back default interest. And as I said before, you could also just short sell it. Like they could take care of it and kind of backdoor. Like these are non-marketed properties. These are things that the bank just wants to find somebody who could take over this loan. They put in a new loan a lot of times. Like we have one that we're working with right now where the lender who is short selling it, they're offering just great terms in order to try and get the value out. They'll do a bridge loan with like 300 over instead of 450 over SOFR, just to try and get out as much value as they can. And all of those things can happen before they actually foreclose.
But Kyle, but I feel like you're getting really into the weeds, and it's like at the end of the day, all you need is some major mainstream media publication to come out and say, hey, look, this bank, which is the number 10 or 8 or 12 bank in the country, is having some issues, and some rating agency is now, downgraded them from AAA to AA or to B minus or whatever because of what they're seeing in their loan portfolio. Nobody's going to be looking at these details, and like I know you guys are, but it's the common person who's watching the news who suddenly sees all these like negative news about a particular bank, and then they start freaking out, and that's the contagion part that I think you gotta really consider, because nobody is looking at these details like you guys are, and like the average.
I guess I don't see that leading to more foreclosures. Yes, that could be bank issues, and that's a separate thing. But as far as leading to more foreclosures,
but it's a big bank. But if you're working with a bank and the bank's got a problem and they're looking to go under, and they're going to be bought out by JP Morgan, and they've got a problem with their balance sheet, are they going to be more likely or less likely to work with you on a foreclosure?
I'm thinking they're more likely to work with you in general, not foreclose on you. You're seeing a lot of workouts happen, a lot of extensions, a lot of, okay, give us a little bit more reserves and we'll extend your loan out. Like a lot of banks are doing everything they can to not have to go down that process.
The administration literally told them last year to not go through the foreclosure process. They said extend. And the banks, when you look at it for the banks, that actually is better. Going through a foreclosure process for a bank is not something they want to do. It's not good for them. They don't operate these assets. They don't know what to do with it, right? And so they're working with these carriers of the loan, the borrowers, to either dispose or extend, right? So if they need to sell, if they get into trouble, there's just way more now that they're doing with, because they have the tools to. I think that's also a big difference, right? The difference in 2008, when you looked at it, valuations had cratered. We're not seeing that in commercial real estate, right? So it's not like that. And I'm not saying values haven't gone down in the last 3 years, but they didn't go down, 40%, 30%. So in a lot of cases, the equity, once again, may have been affected, but maybe not even wiped out. And so I think they have more tools and they're more willing to do things with the borrowers. They've been asked to by the government. And when you look at that, they're being creative. So we're not seeing them come to market.
So I think what three of us are saying is that there's probably less risk here than the market is pricing in, or that the average person out there is concerned about. And I don't know why you're shaking your head.
Because it doesn't give, nobody cares, because the actual risk versus the perceived risk, it's all about the perceived risk. That's my point. Like, it doesn't matter that the actual risk is minimal and nobody cares. And it's like, if you really dig into the numbers and you do a deep dive.
When you say perceived risk from who? Like we don't as real estate investors.
From whatever the Wall Street Journal or Fox News or CNN or whatever.
But as the people who are owning the commercial real estate right now, we don't care what the common public thinks the perceived risk. We don't care that people are, maybe we care as far as like trying to get investors for a new deal, what they're perceiving the state of the market. But as far as us getting foreclosed on a property, or banks like treating us differently, I just don't see how it's going to affect us.
I think Mauricio's point, though, is that these banks have other depositors besides us.
They have other issues. They have other issues. Like, why? Like, if you're trying to negotiate with your bank and the bank is worried over here that they're actually going to freaking be foreclosed on, their business is going to end, do you think they're going to be focused on your loan modification and trying to save you, or they're trying to save themselves? Like, when people start pulling their money from the bank, like Silicon Valley Bank, for example, just imagine that your mortgage was with Silicon Valley Bank. I know that's not a great analogy, but just assume that you're trying to negotiate with Silicon Valley Bank and you're in the middle of March of 2022, whatever, 23 is, whatever it was. Like, do you think they're going to be focused on trying to figure out a best case scenario for your resolution? Or are they going to be worried about, crap, how do we stop this all these depositors leaving our bank because of this perceived risk that maybe is not even true, but the reality is people are just fleeing my bank like there's no tomorrow? Like, what do you think they're going to be focused more on?
Well, so the alternative is that they let these loans go into default, and it gets worse because people are worried more about them.
Who cares? They're trying to survive. Like, who cares about whether this one loan of their portfolio matters?
But they're not. Banks aren't trying to survive. Their stocks are up. They're doing great. That would be something true if that was a problem. But right now, banks aren't trying to survive. They're doing just fine. So there isn't to say that there's
Silicon Valley Bank wasn't doing just fine in March of last year. They were freaking struggling for their survival. Do you think they're going to be negotiating with your, self-storage, loan modification?
But that all happened over the course of 1 week. 1 week that doesn't. We're talking about commercial loans. Commercial loans deal in quarters and years.
Yeah, but you say one bank, but the reality is I was concerned about my bank. I have a regional bank, and I'm like, crap, should I be pulling my money from my regional bank because there's other bank? There seems to be an apparent systemic risk on Silicon Valley Bank. Should I pull my money?
Yeah, but something's going to happen to those loan portfolios. Like even if a bank goes under, someone buys those loan portfolios, someone takes it over. It as far as the risk to us as commercial real estate owners with our loans, I don't see that as an inherent risk to anything happening to us. And I've if anything, I've seen a trend that banks are being much more lenient. They don't want foreclosures. They want to work with people. And worst case scenario, they're working out short sales. We're in the Houston market, and the Houston market had that huge publicized portfolio foreclosed upon, right? And so everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be these, it was a 200 and whatever million dollar portfolio of loan that went under. That's maybe one of 3 foreclosures that we've seen come across our desk. We've seen a bunch of short sales come across our desk where the lender's willing to take maybe a little bit less than their loan value in order to be kind of made whole as much as they can. But they're not, foreclosures just aren't happening in our space. I don't know about office. I can only go based off what I've read. But what I've read is banks don't want to run an office space. They're not going to run it better, or they're not going to do a better job than the current operator. They want that operator to maybe have a little bit of leniency, have a little bit of leeway so that they can operate it better. So worst case scenario, they can foreclose later when the values are higher. So I just don't see these foreclosures happening.
Well, too, not only that, but they've been saying this for how long now? How long has the Wall Street Journal been saying, or something like that? Nobody's made a run on a bank. Nobody's done that thing because of commercial real estate. Hasn't happened.
I'm sorry. Was Silicon Valley Bank? Was that just a dream? What happened with what happened
No,
there?
it wasn't a dream, but it wasn't commercial real estate. That's not what caused the Silicon Valley problem. That had nothing to do with it. So the Wall Street Journal didn't, and people didn't say there's a commercial real estate crisis and went to Silicon Valley Bank. That's not what happened. That was Silicon Valley Bank didn't have anything to do with that. So that's what I'm saying is they've been calling for this now for 2.5 years. Nobody's freaked out. Banks haven't freaked out, and it still isn't materializing yet. And I think that,
And actually, that whole like bank term funding.
First of all, I'm not sure. Let's just look. I actually, what the hell's going on over here? I'm not sure what's going on over here. But like,
He's faking it. That was an empty bottle an hour ago.
but like we're literally seeing in front of us. Like if you really pull back, and I pull these stats for the conference, I want to finish that up. If you look at the amount of commercial banks and how they've shrunk over the years, I mean, you guys all know these statistics. I need to show those, but like literally, I pulled up the FDIC numbers, and like back when they started keeping track, like in 1965 or 66, there's little like 24,000 commercial banks out there. Then that went down to 12 in the mid 1950s, and 1990s, and then that number is continually going to dwindle down. And to today, we're down to like 4,000 commercial banks. And the reason for that is because people like me, like I am one of those people who, when Silicon Valley Bank happened, right, I started to look and do a deep dive into my particular bank because I wasn't banking with one of the big Chase or Wells Fargo bank. I had a small regional bank, and even though I actually believe they were one of the top regional banks around, their balance sheet, I actually went in and looked at their balance sheet. They look pretty good, but you know what? It's easier for me to move my money from these small commercial banks into a Bank of America or Wells Fargo or JP Morgan. It may not be even really relevant. Like I'm just overreacting, but the reality is I did that, and thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people did the same thing where they moved their money out of these small commercial banks and moved it into like more perceived, whether that's true or not, perceived secure banks. And I think that's a trend that you cannot deny. You cannot deny that the bigger banks are gobbling up smaller banks as people are losing faith in these smaller banks because they just don't have the security on them.
I'm going to take solace in the fact that a year ago I was saying I have no concerns over the banking industry. And I think all three of you told me that I was crazy and we needed to be cognizant and concerned about what could potentially happen after Silicon Valley Bank. And now I've gotten two of you to agree with me that there's not a lot of risk. I need to get one more to agree with me. I think I can do it. I need a few more months, but I think I can do it.
You're going to have to show me a trend that shows that the commercial bank number doesn't keep dwindling down from 24,000 to 12,000 to 6,000 to now 4,000.
But even if it does, I don't see that affecting current loans. Like that'll be tougher going forward. And we're already seeing it right now. Loan spreads, historically, that were pretty high as compared to what they were a few years ago. A few years ago, we were seeing loan spreads in like 150 bips.
Personally, I am super looking forward to be able to go back. Maybe it's a couple years from now, 3 years from now, go back and take the clips from this pod and show you guys how tremendously wrong. I can't wait to make those videos. So those clips that I'm going to make of me telling you how it's going to happen. And when it happens, I'm just going to go back to the video because that's the beauty of this pod. It's all on video, and then we can just always go back to it.
I agree, but for me, it's going to be a video of AJ combing his beard.
you're going to have so much footage of that.
To wrap this up a little bit, if we were a little bit worried before, and we brought up the point. I think me and Mauricio brought up the point before about this bank term funding and how that was coming due and how that was going to affect. And actually there is a little bit of good news there that banks actually started paying that down a little bit. So that brings a little bit of credence to we hypothecated that there was just some banks that were taking advantage of the arbitrage opportunity of taking money from this bank term funding and then loaning it out at higher rates. And the fact that they're actually paying these back, to me, lends a little bit to the fact that maybe that's what was going on. It wasn't all these banks that were needing this bank term funding so much. But theoretically, with Mauricio's concerned, that bank term funding should have shored up everything that happened with Signature Bank and with Silicon Valley Bank, that with the issues that was going on there, and they should have that taken care of. But if you listen to AJ and I, we don't think that commercial real estate is going to be the downfall of these banks. So, I don't see what else will be.
And here's the big reason why: the big banks have very little exposure to commercial real estate.
100%.
They don't have very much exposure. It is fractional.
Until they gobble up the banks that do have the exposure.
You're correct. So right now, commercial real estate is outrageously fractionalized amongst different types of banks, credit unions, local, regionalized. It's a very regional thing. And the bank's exposure overall is $1 trillion. Now, that sounds crazy when you say it out loud, right? But in banking terms, that's not at all. Like, it's not at all. And when you look at how much they even have on their books, it's very small. The bank's exposure, we're talking less than 10%.
Yeah, and $1 trillion, that's office over the next 5 years, 200 billion a year. And even if half of that goes into default, that's 100 billion a year, which is one half of a Silicon Valley bank. The worst case scenario is these regional banks get gobbled up by the big banks. Then all of this commercial debt starts to go south, and the government steps in and says, we're going to bail out these big banks, and it all goes away, and it's like it never even happened.
Office represents less than 4% of assets in the entire banking sector. Less than 4%. That's nothing.
First of all, I didn't know that, and I still pulled my money from my small commercial bank and put it into JP Morgan.
It's 20% of commercial mortgages, but it's 4% of all banking assets.
I didn't know that, and I just pulled my money from my small commercial bank and put it into JP Morgan.
Well, and just to clarify too, as we said, defaults doesn't necessarily mean like these loans are all of a sudden going to be gone and they're going to zero, right? Like, a loan goes into default, a bank can work it through, a bank can put it to special servicing, get it back paying. There's lots of things that can happen. It's not going to be a complete loss on all these loans.
Kyle, wait. One more thing before we go into the top 10. Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 35.
The answer is 11.
The answer is 11. So I'm going to go down, and number 11 gets a free copy of the Legal Strategy for Everyone, autographed, and I want to get out of the way. Now we get to the top 10.
No, Mauricio, I was going to use that instead of the top 10. We were going to do a whole drum roll and everything, and now I have to do it.
I just saved you a bunch of time. Number 11 is the winner. I'm going to go from top to bottom, and whoever's number 11 will win the book.
All right. Any final points on this, AJ, or are we wrapping this up?
The only last point that I think we should make is not only the exposure. People think that 2008 was a real estate crisis. It wasn't. It wasn't a real estate crisis. The real estate crisis that happened did not cause the banks to collapse. That was an insurance product crisis. It took real estate losses and magnified it by 100x. That's what actually got them into trouble. It was their credit default swaps and then the insurance that they had on the credit default swaps. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. And when you look at the commercial real estate sector, it's vastly smaller than even that. Most commercial real estate is done in bonds, almost all of it. We're talking 80% is not held, the risk is not held by banks. It is held by bond holders that can get wiped out. So banks collateralize that debt. They don't hold it on the books like you do a mortgage or something else like that. That's not how it works. That goes into a totally another different pocket that is called the bond market.
Except for Mauricio's small commercial bank that he just pulled his money out. They might have some portfolio loans that they're keeping. So that's why he's out of there.
That's right. That's right. But if the commercial real estate market gets in trouble, the bond market.
AJ, next week's topic is what caused the 2008 financial crisis. That sounds like a great topic.
I got it. I can do it.
I'm sure that hasn't talked about enough.
That was part of my master's program and one of my theses that I wrote in 2010. So I'm good.
Because I will submit to you that it was a dollar shortage crisis, not a whatever crisis.
I can do it.
All right. Let me just put one. I'm going to put this one thing back up on the screen to wrap this up, because AJ brought up the fact that the 2008 crisis. I want to point out, this says the delinquency peak. The last delinquency peak for commercial real estate was actually in July of 2012. So the crisis was in 2008, and the peak was in July of 2012. So even if we do see delinquency continue to rise, then the peak is still could be a long ways away.
That's actually a great graphic.
Jay's lost it. Jay,
I'll keep going. Keep going.
keep
I'm
going.
ready. I'm ready.
Can I am I the host? Can I mute him?
I think you can.
Jay's ready to move on. Wait.
I've got a game. Can I do the game?
Fine, do the game, Jay. Whatever you want. When Jay gets drunk, apparently he needs to be in charge.
Jay didn't even make it an hour, and when he's not talking, he's done.
Here's the game. You check into a hotel. You fill out the form that says, I do not want room service during my stay. You get into your room, you leave your room, you put the do not disturb on the door. So now you've said, I do not want room service or I do not want cleaning, and you have a do not disturb sign on the door. Do you still expect somebody to come into your room and clean it while you're gone?
Is this a game or a question?
Either way,
Seemed like a rhetorical question.
I'm a little disturbed that I'm in a very nice hotel and I indicated multiple times that I don't want people in my room.
See, Mauricio, this is why I started with you, because you're a much more fun drunk than Jay. That was just an awful story.
First of all, I will take exception to Jay saying this is a very nice hotel. It's an okay hotel. It's not like the greatest hotel of all time.
It's a very decent hotel.
It's a decent hotel. Yes, it's a decent hotel. Let's not get carried away with a very good hotel.
So maybe someone played a trick on you, Jay, because we used to do that all the time when we went on road trips. The last day of the road trip, you know those little room service breakfast menus that you could put out on the outside of your door, and breakfast could show up at any time that you wanted, so you'd be ready for you right when you woke up. Well, we would play pranks on our teammates where we would fill it out and put it for 5:30 in the morning. The guys would be out drinking until 3 in the morning. They'd sleep for 2.5 hours, and all of a sudden room service would come knock on their door with a full breakfast. Like the entire menu would show up in their breakfast. So maybe someone's pulling a prank.
See, I think that's awesome. I would love that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a prank. That'd be a gift.
First of all, I'm in the same hotel, obviously, that Jay is, and I did not get asked that question ahead of time. Like, do I want service on my room?
Because you didn't check in online.
That's true. That's the problem. Why would you check online?
So that way I get here and I just get my key and I go to my room.
All right. You know what? At this point, Kyle, at this point, I just want a top 10. Can you give me a top 10?
Wait a second. One more question. So let's say,
Kyle, give me a top 10 now. Give me a top 10 now.
Let's say you fill out a laundry slip to get 2 shirts pressed. And at the bottom of the slip, it says they will be delivered back to your room by 6 p.m. And it is now 7 p.m. and your shirts are not delivered back to your room. Are you concerned that you're never getting your shirts?
I didn't realize that you even owned shirts that needed pressing.
I told you, now that I'm 25 years old, I am dressing like an adult.
Hey, Kyle, let's get to the top 10.
All right, top 10 real quick. So when we looked at the jobs numbers before, half of those jobs gained were government jobs.
Shocker.
So I was like, like this, all of our taxpayer money is just going to gaining jobs for the government, which got me thinking, what are the highest paid jobs for the government? So I looked into it. Number 1, politicians, 175,000 to 400,000.
The president makes like 250, right? The president,
400,000. The president makes. Your senators make on average or make 174,000. So there you go. Federal judges. So the federal judges make 210 to 270,000. Then generals and admirals actually are up there. But you got to get up to that level of general and admiral.
They deserve it. They deserve it.
I think that's going to be my next career then.
Yeah, they deserve it.
I'm going to be an admiral.
You know what's next? Securities compliance examiner. This is the whole reason I picked this list, is because I saw that in the top 5 was a securities compliance examiner. So those SEC people who were coming after Mauricio's clients, they're making quite a bit of money. And then obviously
for the record, there's very few, if any, people coming after my clients. I want to make that clear. Very, very clear. When you work with a top notch, you save money. You don't spend money. You save money on the back end.
Okay, and then we got our obviously our attorneys. Our patent attorney comes in next. I was going to skip this because I know I'm going to butcher it, but a nurse anesthetist, very specialized. So being very specialized to make a lot of money.
Anesthetist.
That's a government job.
That's a government job. Administrative law judge.
How much do post office workers make?
Patent administrator after that, and then there's a bunch of program managers after that. Actually, mathematician and statistician. So these people who are doing these job surveys, doing statisticians, they're apparently making over 150 grand. So there you go.
Yes.
So I am done with this podcast, and I am going to be interviewing for an admiral position because it pays well. And I'm pretty sure what do I need on my resume to become an admiral?
You have to not be able to handle the truth.
I can't handle the truth. Okay, fair.
All right, let's wrap this up. J and Mauricio, I don't even think you get plugs today. AJ, what's your plug for the day?
All right.
You go first. AJ, wait. No, AJ, wait, stop. You're not going first. I'm gonna plug Left Field Investors, who gave us this beautiful little thing for keynoting and speaking at the Left Field Investor Best Ever Conference. Look at this. What do you think? This is freaking awesome. So I'm gonna plug Left Field Investors right now. If you haven't checked out their podcast, check it out.
All right, AJ, you got a real plug?
So, I'm going to plug the newsletter coming out this week. Make sure you guys go check it out.
You're not going to plug the happy hour that's happening right now at the Best Ever Conference that you're not here?
The one I'm hosting right now,
The one you're hosting.
which I am not there. Now,
Guys, let me just say, if you were at the Best Ever Conference and you were at the happy hour hosted by AJ, can you please give him a thank you in the comments? That would really be awesome.
I'm sorry.
No, thank Casey, not AJ, because apparently AJ had nothing to do with it. All right, I'm going to plug my wife as per usual. I don't know where she is. I got to go find her. I don't think she's home, but when she gets home, she's going to know that I plugged her. Go check her out. Badass Investor, YouTube, Badass Investor. Yeah. So let's wrap this up, boys. My drink's been gone for a while.
Thanks, everybody.
Love you guys.
I will see you next Tuesday.